Welcome to our Iowa Ideas Conference. In this session, we will be talking about preserving the arts in public education. I'm your moderator, Grace King, and K-12 education reporter at the Gazette. This session is within the Arts and Culture track. Today, we will be hearing from Caroline Myers, Director of Education at Des Moines Performing Arts, Leon Keener, Executive Director of the Iowa Alliance for Arts Education, John Welch, Director of Orchestras at Iowa City West High School, and Sarah Fairfield, Mentor and Instructional Design Strategist for the Iowa City Community School District. Welcome to our panelists and to everyone joining here today. Don't forget to submit questions via Whova for our panelists throughout the session, and all of our sessions are being recorded. All right, in a few words, why don't you describe your experience in the education art space? Caroline, can we start with you?
Yes, hi, happy to be here today. So I work for a nonprofit arts organization. So I'm an arts administrator, and I like to say an informal educator. So the way we work at Des Moines Performing Arts with schools as a field trip provider, we on average serve about 50,000 students a year through being a cultural destination for daytime field trips to see professional performances that augment and supplement what they're learning in classrooms, as well as working with teachers through our teacher professional development program to support arts integration strategies. And then we work in the extracurricular space through our statewide initiative with the Iowa High School Musical Theater Award, specifically working with high school drama teachers and coaches on how to grow and improve their school musical process and helping students grow their craft in the skills of drama and musical theater.
That's amazing. Leon, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, again, well, I'm happy to be here today. Again, my name is Leon Keener. I'm currently the Executive Director of the Iowa Alliance for Arts Education. My background is in instrumental music education. I taught 5 through 12 instrumental music, different portions of that for 35 years. And then the last 12 years have been teaching music classes for a community college, do music teaching seminar work for the University of Iowa, directed band at Wartburg for 2 years, and have been the co-administrator of the Iowa Alliance for Arts Education mentoring program for beginning fine arts teachers in the state. The Iowa Alliance for Arts Education is just the umbrella organization of all the professional arts education organizations in the state, and we function on professional development, mentorship, and advocacy for arts education. Great to be here today.
Sarah, can you describe your experience in the education art space?
Yes, I'd be happy to. And good morning, everyone. And thank you, Grace, for moderating today. So I'm a graduate of the University of Iowa, and I participated there in the choral and opera production programs. And I graduated with a PhD in music education. And for the past 23 years, I've been teaching elementary general music in the Iowa City schools, and I just adored that position. But I also became the curriculum coordinator for general music and did that for the last 7 years. And in addition to that role, I also taught adjunct at the University of Iowa and at Coe College, teaching music methods classes for undergraduate music education students. Currently, I'm a founder of a program called Music Constructed, which is a professional development platform for general music educators. Happy to be here today.
Thank you, Sarah. John, what's your experience?
Hi, everybody. Happy to be here. My name is John Welch, and I am the orchestra director, or the director of orchestras at Iowa City West High. I just completed a tenure actually working with Sarah here at the Iowa City Schools as the performance music coordinator for the Iowa City Schools. So that would be band, orchestra, choir for all of our programs, grades 5 through 12. I am also the current past president, so I just finished 2 years as the active president of the Iowa String Teachers Association, and am still working in that sort of leadership and advocacy role with that organization. An active performing violist, and I am also a board member and the conductor of and this is one I forgot to say, the 5 Seasons Chamber Orchestra in Cedar Rapids. So happy to be here.
A lot of amazing experience from all of you. Thank you for being here. John, let's start with you. Can you talk about why fine arts programs are important to K-12 education?
Oh, I was hoping Leon would start with this one, but there are a number of reasons why. This is the big question. This is the first point of access for many of our students to arts in the community, and in a broad general sense, they're important in the K-12 schools just because of that. You'll probably hear this word a lot from us, especially Sarah and I, about access. I think in my philosophy of music education is that it's important, it's necessary in our schools. We know that there's research that coordinate or that talks about the benefits of music education. There are high correlations with test scores and all of that. Lots of study with brain development and whatnot. But I think that providing spaces for students to come to belong to be part of a number of just programs in their school to make this highly beneficial of an public education. It's just incredibly important. I really wasn't prepared to start with this one. I thought that Leon,
do you want to jump in here?
Well, no, John, that was great. I think it's one of those things. I think, first of all, we as arts educators first believe arts in and of themselves are worthy of it. I think that in and of itself, they're worthy. But I think it's also one of those things that we have learned through advocacy work that really arts are the things that really bridge everything across your school curriculum. When we look at just the skills that we teach in a fine arts classroom, we teach critical thinking, we teach communication, we teach creativity, we teach flexibility, productivity, adaptability, all these things now that we look at the employability skills. When I look at what people are looking for, that really describes the fine arts classroom. So I think it's one of those things, and John was referring to this too, it's also a classroom in the school where every student gets to be themselves. Every student is accepted for who they are. It's a safe place for all students to be who they are and then also express their emotion. And I think that was one thing that we found during COVID, is that was very difficult for students when they were so isolated.
Sarah or Caroline, do you have any other thoughts on that?
I would just jump in and agree with everything that John and Leon said. And I've often found that in many schools, the fine arts are the heart and soul of the schools.
It's so true. We've heard so many great things. And if you can imagine, we're very music and performing arts heavy on this panel today, but think about the difference of walking into a building where all of the hallways are blank and there's nothing on those walls versus a building where there is art and visual representation of students' expression, where they can go to the music classroom and have ways to express who they are and just the joy and the love that just fills that space with. We want our learning spaces in our schools to be places where children and students want to come and where they feel safe. And one of the ways we do that is making sure that they know that their voice matters. And the arts are a great way to do that. In addition to all of the research and benefits on brain development and how the arts support those things, it's the environment we're creating that supports learning and supports the whole child coming to school.
And can I hop back in with that too? Sorry, I just it's just such a broad thing to address as to why they're important. I also just wanted to say we've learned a lot through the past few years and being in the pandemic about the need for social emotional learning. And this is something that's intrinsic in the work that we do and have done. And when we're able to connect that with, as Leon had said, with critical thinking and developing the brain in a way that not all of our other classrooms are able to do, it's just a wonderful opportunity for our children. And we need to provide this in a variety of different ways. When we're talking about arts, one of the reasons why I stumbled is because we're not just talking about music, which I am happy to, speak on and could go on, but also we're talking about a variety of the performing arts, whether that's drama, theater, or even our fine arts that can include drawing, painting, just the visual arts. Having these as a robust program in each public school is important and necessary for all the reasons we talked about: safe spaces for kids, allowing them to express themselves, allowing them to have that opportunity for that social emotional learning. It's needed. It needs to be part of every single kid's program in all the states, but especially here in Iowa.
Leon, would you mind talking about what some of those barriers are to offering these programs?
Okay, I think right now it's really interesting. One thing we're seeing right now across the state is just staffing. One thing that we look at is, okay, with the mentoring program that the Alliance offers, what we do is we track all the first and second year teachers in the state of Iowa. And we work with the 6 professional organizations. So with art, with Art Educators of Iowa, the Iowa String Teachers, the Iowa Bandmasters, choral directors, music educators, and Iowa Thespians. And one thing that we're finding is, I think first one of the barriers is just finding people to fill the jobs right now. One thing we're seeing is there may be filling 2 positions. I just went on Teach Iowa yesterday or 2 days ago and work with the University of Iowa student teachers. And there were 65 just music jobs right now in the state on the Teach Iowa website. And many of them were like fill immediately. It wasn't like second semester or, next fall. No, it's like now. And so I think that's a real barrier there. And I think the other thing too is just as what happens is the quality of the instruction goes down because just lack of time. So for example, the choir director is doing choir and band. The band director is doing general music, things like that, where you just have less student contact time just because of staffing issues. So I think that's one thing that really has come across right now. And then secondly, I think all has to do with learning loss. I think the fine arts were the ones that were the first impacted by COVID and the last to recover. Because when you were doing online instruction, I mean, it's not perfect, but you could teach some other subjects online much better than performing arts or art or music or, drama. So I think that's a thing too, where our recovery period is going to be a little bit longer as well.
Absolutely. Sarah?
If I could piggyback off of what Leon, yes, please. If I could piggyback off of what Leon is saying as well, going along with that, sometimes I see that our new educators, one barrier I see is they're not given adequate professional development once they're in the classroom, and that professional development is not geared towards arts education, but rather geared towards general education. And so once they become an educator, sometimes they feel alone in the classroom. So also providing them support that is unique to their content area is another barrier that we sometimes see.
Right. I want to remind our audience, you're welcome to put any questions you have for our panelists in the Whova chat. What are some of the solutions we have to alleviating some of these barriers, maybe educational staffing wise? Let's start there.
Grace, could I actually
Yeah.
kind of hop in, and it might tie into what you were just saying too.
Go
I
ahead.
think one of the major barriers that we haven't said is funding. If we're talking about in K through 12 education, like here at the Iowa City Schools, a lot of times, I should say we're very fortunate. I teach in just an outstanding district. I've been fortunate to have for me being the orchestra director here, from that perspective, we have access to all the things that the university offers, everything that you would get out of a Big Ten college town. But still, the reality is that we are a K through 12 public institution, and for us, and one of the things is that we have a really big demand right now. The students coming out of the pandemic want to be part of our programs, and we're actually rebounding fairly well. And I would not be surprised to find this across the state. The kids know what they missed during that time that they were online. Parents are wanting their kids to get involved. Kids are wanting to be involved at an all-time high. Like we normally, at our elementary level for orchestra, recruit district-wide around 400 and something students. And right now we're pushing over 550, getting close to 600. It's amazing, and it's crossing all sorts of socioeconomic lines, all sorts of demographic boundaries that we have seen, or barriers that we have seen in the past. But for us, it's trying to find more FTE, more teachers to be able to get to this. And I know that this is the case in a number of places, to where we're seeing that fine arts programs aren't as funded as well as they can be. And a lot of that can be due to the amount of allowable growth that comes from the state, and for just general funding of public educators. It's one of these things to where we, the reality in every single public school, not just in Iowa, but across the nation, is that everybody would love to have these huge, robust programs, have wonderful, as an orchestra director, we're very rare in this state. And if we could have these in every single school, I think everybody would love to see that. But the reality is, oftentimes, as Leon said, you've got one person that's covering everything. And that's really the reality of the situation, finding the funding. That's always going to be a problem with any sorts of arts program anywhere. But if we're talking specifically about K through 12 public education, finding those public dollars to be able to afford our programs, that's a major barrier that's happening right now, and is just one of those battles we're constantly fighting, but especially right now.
We have some great questions from our audience here. What are some things that local arts organizations or nonprofits can do to help educators and students during the school year or even during the summer?
That's a great question. And I think it starts with listening and figuring out how you can be a responsive partner. So if you are a nonprofit organization and an arts organization, you may think you have the best program ever, but time is short, dollars are short, and figuring out, it's not just coming to the table and saying, this is what we can offer. It can say, this is one of the things we can offer. What would really help you? And how can we go to the table and talk to your administrators, talk to your school board, talk to businesses, and help alleviate some of the ask on the public school system for having to do all of that advocacy themselves, and say, we can be another voice at this table that can help tell the story and come in with programs. We don't want to displace any of these programs. We never want to be seen as taking a job away from a full-time music educator or specialist, but where can we augment, especially I think in some of those areas that we don't see represented in our public schools. Dance and theater as a whole are areas that are really underrepresented in terms of performing arts, because we don't have the same type of requirements. And so that is specifically areas that I think nonprofits and arts partners can really kind of fill this gap, that it's maybe not going to be the same type of sequential learning that they would get in visual art or music at some of those early years, but can we at least offer an exposure and an introduction and an appreciation and open doors to those understandings in areas that, because of the finite resources, our public schools are not as well positioned to offer, or to offer at scale.
I think that ties really well into this next question we got from our audience. The National Czech and Slovak Museum in Cedar Rapids offers many free opportunities in the Lynn County area and online. We rarely see participation by schools and families. How can we reach out to provide this information to them? Schools are also able to come in for tours, but the president, I think, I'm not sure if we're talking about the president of the museum here, but is bringing a lot of talent in arts and entertainment. So what are some ways, I guess, that those organizations can reach out?
I think first just going in and just contacting the school directly. I think maybe like in Cedar Rapids, there could be a fine arts coordinator. I'm not sure if there is, but lots of times I think it's going through just going to the local school district. A lot of it just comes down to communication. That's one thing that we work a lot with the Alliance, is we found we are much stronger when we communicate rather than be in our silos. And you would think that would become easier now. And I think it's one of those things where we have to really strive to communicate even more right now, because everyone is, we're coming out of COVID, and we're trying to move things forward. I think just that invitation, the communication. Another thing I think that we can do is the Alliance also works with the Iowa Arts Council and Iowa Department of Cultural Affairs. And that's another thing too that we try to do, is to get those community and school engagement things working together, providing funding for opportunities. And also I think a lot of it is just making people aware that these things are available. So I think a lot of communication.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if I
Todd?
could step in here, I know that as I'm thinking of this as when I was the coordinator for the district, and then also just as a director of a program, reaching out directly to us and finding who that contact person is. And Cedar Rapids does have somebody that you can reach out to directly. And if it were Iowa City, I would suggest, you know, reaching out to somebody like Sarah Fairfield, or reaching out to this might take some digging on the part of the local organization. I think what happens, and what some things that happened with us were I focused more on the secondary level when I was in that role, and there were, forgive me, I'm at a public school.
In a school.
But what you would find is that sometimes they were reaching out to administrators, principals, and that might be who you need to contact in certain schools, because in the smaller school districts, they might not have somebody that's a fine arts coordinator or a, you know, in that role. But in the larger schools and some of those medium-sized schools, there typically is somebody in that position. And if you can send something directly to them that does not look like, you know, like, greetings, current director of whatever, you know, but, you know, really find who that is. A personal invitation goes a very long way. And I know that there have been really cool things that we were able to do and get started, especially before the pandemic, where folks would reach out to us and we were able to disseminate that information to our directors or even organize things district-wide.
Let's talk about equity in these programs. John, you were talking earlier about how there's more students than ever interested. But how do you make sure that there is equity, that you're reaching out to underserved populations and there's opportunities for them? And what does that look like?
So this is something that we worked on. This is a very big and a very broad I don't want to say problem, but this is something we're working on right now. And I know that Sarah and we did a curriculum review that started before the pandemic, and we kind of finished in early of last year and worked through the pandemic. And we were trying to figure out certain things, taking a look at the demographics of our programs, especially our secondary performance art programs, and, you know, trying to you know, see the data, who's involved in our programs, who's getting involved with this. So we did a number of things to bring people in that didn't necessarily look like the people that are currently in our programs. Tried to reach out to a number of folks and see what we could do to get as many voices involved. So there are a couple of ways to look at this. So one of the things, like, you know, if we want to think of like the boots on the ground sort of approach, I know that I'll speak as the West High Orchestra director. One of the things that I've done working with our elementary directors, and I shouldn't take credit for this. This was kind of a, you know, we brought this up and started to say, hey, we're noticing these trends. We see it at the junior high. We're just not retaining students of color, and we're not retaining students from low socioeconomic backgrounds. What do we need to do? So one of the things as coordinator that I did was always prioritize getting instruments into the hands of kids that needed them the most. And, you know, that might have meant saying to our secondary directors, you're going to have to wait a little bit. We need to prioritize this. But then in terms of recruitment and reaching out, we're very fortunate in the Iowa City schools to have a number of resources such as student family advocates, folks that translate material into a number of languages. I think that we have like, Sarah, you might know better than I, 21 languages or something that are spoken.
We do.
And we had our recruitment materials translated into a number of languages. And I know that our elementary folks went and started to work directly with those people to get these things out. And we started to see that more and more students were getting involved. Now, retaining those students, that's going to be our next challenge, but we've already started to see how we can, you know, advertise these things and find funding sources to get instruments into students' hands. For me, and I'm sure that there are a number of folks here that are part of local arts organizations and all, we just had a full attack last year, and then all of a sudden we had a problem of we we need more money. We blew through our what's normally a very generous budget. And I was able to work with different organizations. One was 100+ Men Who Care. They gave us a very generous donation, and it's escaping me right now. Oh, and I was able to work with the Iowa City Schools Foundation, who was able to out and find a very generous donor, and I think we raised over $20,000 to go and supplement our normal funds to purchase instruments for beginning band and orchestra, and get those instruments into kids' hands. So, that was kind of the start, and we really made a big dent into that problem. And the problem being that we just weren't getting to every single member of our community. And now our work is to figure out what do we need to do on our end to make sure we're applying equitable opportunities. What are we teaching the kids? How are we teaching them? And what are we going to do to make things culturally relevant? And what are we going to do to make sure that what we offer here curricularly is going to be something that is going to be beneficial to every member of our very diverse population. And that's quite a challenge. And there are a number of things that we're going to be moving on from there. But some of those first efforts that we took over the past couple of years have been quite fruitful. And it's a lot of work, a lot of things to be done.
Yeah, that's such a good point, John. It's more than just making sure that you have a representation of every type of student in your building. It's about making sure that you are also representing them in the content you're teaching. Would any of you like to add to that?
I would. I'd also like to bring up that in Iowa City, we have a really unique program that we are lucky enough to work with called Any Given Child. And this program began as a partnership between our school district and the Kennedy Center for the Arts. The Kennedy Center developed this program to assist communities like ours in developing and implementing a plan for expanding arts education in their schools. And really the purpose of it was to ensure access and equity for students in the arts in K through 8. In order to achieve that goal, we try to provide similar arts opportunities across the district to every single school. And we have a large school district, so this is really challenging because when we first started this work with Any Given Child, we found that there were some schools that could provide opportunities based on the funding from their parents, from their PTO organizations. And we realized that some schools every year were getting these wonderful opportunities of bringing in touring opera companies or going to places like the Czech Museum. And then we had other schools that didn't have as much robust funding from their parents, so they weren't able to engage in those programs. This Any Given Child fills in those gaps and makes sure that across the district, we can ensure that equity of funding so that all of the students in our district are receiving those same opportunities. So through this program, we regularly look at the data at what opportunities students are getting. And also to piggyback off of what Carolyn was saying, we're looking at it not only in music and visual arts, but also in dance, theater, and even media and literature. So if you're a small community in Iowa or a medium-sized community that is trying to look at equity, you may consider looking into a program such as Any Given Child as a way to partnership with someone who can help you with some of these solutions.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback. I'm going to take my education hat off now, and I'm going to put my politics hat on now. Okay, just in the last few years, there's been several things I think are really, really important as far as equity and access. I think first of all was the passage of the Every Student Succeeds Act in 2019, which is federal law. And federal law says that arts education is a central part of providing a well-rounded education for all students. That's super, super important that the federal law says this is something that we should have. Secondly, in 2019, we also passed standards for the fine arts education in the state of Iowa. Now, Iowa was the last state in the United States to pass these to pass standards. And it was one of these things where we look at arts education in Iowa and we feel really, oh, we're doing really, really well. We did not have a set of guiding standards. So I think that's another thing too, that it's something, no matter the size of the school that we're looking at, that there is a set of standards that we can look at to help model our curriculum. Third thing, Iowa is very fortunate that we have in Chapter 12 in Iowa law, the school accreditation standards. That is law in the state of Iowa. They were passed in 1999. And what that says is Iowa is very fortunate that fine art, like art and music, have to be taught K-8. They don't just have to be, and every student has to have that. A lot of states don't have that. They have to be offered at the high school level, but they're required K-8. That is super, super important when we look at the ideas now, as we look at a teacher shortage, and all of a sudden, okay, if I'm in a smaller school and I can't find a music teacher or an art teacher, what am I going to do? Right now, you're required by law that is still taught. Now, there's a chance that Chapter 12 is going to be opened up by the legislature. Okay, that can be coming up in the next few years. And that's one thing I think we need to be vigilant as far as we as constituents in the state of Iowa have to work with our legislators that if and when this would happen, that we want to keep that in the state of Iowa. Now, each local school district can have stricter standards. They can have higher standards, so they can have a fine arts requirement for graduation. They can do all these different things, but we in Iowa are very fortunate that it is required and also has to be offered at the high school level as well. So I think that's a thing too. And I look at as far as what we can do to provide equity and access, whether it's a rural school or whether it's an urban school. I think the law is a really important thing that we need to have on our side.
Absolutely. Thank you. Earlier during this conversation, we were talking about professional development opportunities, especially for arts educators and how important those are. We have a question from our audience here, is what opportunities are available and how were those developed within a school district? I don't know if, Sarah, you might have some examples of that.
Certainly. So I do know that through IMEA, there is a mentorship program that's available for music educators specifically. And this is a really wonderful program that pairs an experienced music educator with a music educator one-on-one for consultation, so that I can talk about those things that are really unique to the music education role. Now, all music educators, all educators in the state of Iowa also receive mentoring, and that is also invaluable. But sometimes you really want to talk to someone who is experiencing the same things you're experiencing. And oftentimes, especially if you're in a rural district or in a small school, you may be the only arts teacher or music teacher in your building. So without someone to talk to and collaborate with, that can be a really lonely situation. So I encourage people to look at mentoring programs that might exist through their professional organizations for their content areas. That's one place I would start. Leon, did you want to piggyback off of that?
Okay, that's a program we started. The Iowa Alliance started this program in 2005.
Wow.
We were funded by a federal grant for 8 years. And then the last, when that grant was defunct, then we've been funded by the Iowa legislatures in 2016. So what we do is we work with art, music, drama, speech, and and the Thespians Association as well, acting, drama as well. And what we do is we provide professional development for fine arts teachers, be first and second fine arts teachers in the state. In fact, our fall symposium for beginning teachers is coming up the last Saturday of this month. We also provide both in-person and virtual mentoring. So we did it during the pandemic. We provide virtual mentoring for the teachers, and we also provide in-person mentoring. We work with the 6 professional art education organizations, and that right now we have limited, and this is all, we provide a stipend for every mentor. The third thing that we're able to do is provide scholarships. And what we do is we provide scholarships for first and second year teachers to join their professional organizations and attend professional conferences for professional development. We are the only state in the United States that provides a program like this of this scope. And so it's been really, I think, important. One of the things we looked at is one of the things I think that we really can help to foster fine arts education in the state of Iowa is get these beginning teachers through those first couple of years. They've got to get through those first couple of years because that's when they're the most vulnerable. And I think that's something that's super, super important. Another thing that we're doing as far as professional development, the Iowa Alliance is collaborating with the Iowa Department of Cultural Affairs, Iowa Department of Education, and the Iowa Arts Council. We're doing an Arts Education Summit, and that's going to be in June of 2023. And what we're going to do is we're really looking at, if we provide a day of professional development for the teachers where they can get recertification credit. We have a fine arts leadership team. We have about 26 fine arts educators from across the state that represent all the fine arts areas in the state, as well as community artists and community arts organizations. So what we're doing is bringing them together, and we're going to do a whole day of professional development through the lens of the standards, but we're going to be looking at art, equity and inclusion, student achievement through fine arts standards, community and school collaborations, social emotional learning. Another thing, we're going to also be doing a pre-conference on transdisciplinary education or STEAM education as well. So information on this will all be coming out. Registration will start like probably in January, February. So we're working on it. We're working on it. And also with the Department of Education, we had meetings last week as far as the Iowa Alliance, working with the Department of Education in providing professional development designed specifically for fine arts educators and designed by fine arts educators.
That's incredibly exciting.
And can I hop in with that? And hopefully I can just kind of provide what that looks like. So Leon just said a whole bunch of stuff that sounds exciting and everything. So here's how I actually experienced this. So I'm current past president of the Iowa String Teachers Association. And through ASTA, the American String Teachers Association, which we're a state chapter of, we've had a mentor program in place for a long time, to where folks have been able to be in touch with a mentor teacher because there aren't a ton of teachers, orchestra teachers in certain areas. Leon's group has done such a good job that our organization only uses this. We really, teachers, if they want to, they can go and do it. But we have, in fact, we had Phil Peters, who taught at Des Moines Valley for a number of years. He's recently retired, and he was one of our board members for Iowa String Teachers Association. We put him on this to stay in touch with Leon's organization. So Phil has actually been in touch with me, some other folks. I know my colleague Josh Resnickow at Linmar. We serve as mentors, and this is really cool. I feel very passionately about this. This is like such a cool thing that Leon's leading up. One of my student teachers that was here last year, we actually had an opening for a position, and we hired her last December, and she's teaching strings on the southeast side of Iowa City. And I'm currently serving as her mentor through what Leon is talking about. And the original question, I believe, was what sort of performance or professional development opportunities are there? We have very strong professional organizations for band, orchestra, and choir. If I'm just going to speak specifically about that, the Iowa Choral Directors Association, Iowa Bandmasters Association, and the Iowa String Teachers Association, where we provide wonderful conferences each year to where teachers can come and learn a lot. We also have the Iowa Music Educators Association. And Leon, I believe you offer $500 scholarships to these first and second year teachers. So yes. What's happening is that we're able to take that funding, and I've been working with my student teacher she's now a first year teacher, and she's going to IMEA and ISTA and things like that, to where they're getting really good professional development that is strictly driven on our content areas. And even within those organizations, and we've talked a lot about what sort of professional development are we providing? We have robust opportunities through these professional organizations, and all of this stuff just ties very neatly together. And it's really incredible what we're able to provide through the work that Leon is doing. So Leon, I don't know that I've ever been able to say it personally, but just as somebody that works with you or has worked with you and has experienced it on this end, it's tremendous what's happening here. And we're encouraging everybody to continue to support this program because it's powerful and it's working.
Thank
Yeah,
you for that real life example. Go ahead, Leon.
No, I was just gonna say, it really is it's the collaboration of all the professional organizations. We've created a network of volunteers, and so it really, really makes a difference. As far as you have to be passionate about this because they're the future of the profession. Like I was just at the Art Educators of Iowa conference last weekend. I was there for 2 days. Incredible professional development for art teachers. In 3 weeks, I'm going to the Iowa Thespians Association at UNI. There, same thing, 2 days of incredible professional development for teachers. And the thing that we want to get is to get the younger teachers there, provide funding for them to get that. And also it's like one of the things we found out when we work with the teachers, the majority of all our work goes, like 75% of our mentor visits and funding go to teachers in rural schools, which makes total sense. They're the ones that need it because they're probably the only one in their whole school that teaches that subject area. So, and that one thing, when we go to the legislature, that speaks really, really well because you're saying, no, we can provide something to rural teachers and rural students to really, provide opportunity and access for everyone.
We've talked a lot about, performing or arts educators specifically, but what about general education teachers? How can they get engaged in this work?
I think, first of all, it's cultivating the mindset that arts education doesn't just happen in the art room and the music room, that there is tremendous opportunity to bring the arts of all different forms into your general classroom teacher. And you can do that with and in service of the other content areas that you are trying to teach. So there are several arts organizations across the state that provide opportunities to learn about arts integration strategies. Des Moines Performing Arts is one of those. We work really closely with Des Moines Public Schools and the Kennedy Center with their Partners in Education program. So another shout out to the Kennedy Center, spreading resources across the country, kind of as the nation's performing arts center. But every year we bring in top level instructors to work with. Of course, art and music teachers are welcome to come, but they're really classes and workshops that are geared towards the third grade teacher or the kindergarten teacher and saying, here's how you can bring music into your literacy instruction. Here's how using rhythm and rhyme can increase reading fluency and things that they're already being asked to be held accountable for their students' learning, that we can bring in these arts tools that can really be integrated in a way that is not an additional thing to add to your curriculum, but in service of your curriculum. Dance, drama, so many powerful techniques that make learning kinesthetic and auditory and participatory and collaborative, that really makes that learning sticky and personal because students are drawing on their own self-expression as they're adding it to the curriculum. So check out an arts integration workshop or reach out to different arts organizations to see who is doing this work. And the joy, like that's my favorite thing about our teacher professional development program, is how much autonomy it gives back to teachers and the joy that it brings back into the classroom. That there's more and more that we are asking our classroom teachers to do, but bringing the arts into it brings just so much joy and happiness and allows teachers to flex their creativity to bring that learning alive in ways that students feel really responsive and take ownership over, and you can see their creativity really shine.
Yeah, Caroline, I couldn't agree with you more. That's awesome. I mean, the one thing, I'm just gonna put a shameless plug in here. On Monday, June 11th, we're gonna have a transdisciplinary education workshop. It's gonna be at the Iowa Department of Cultural Affairs, and it's gonna be coordinated by members of our arts education leadership team. We also have people from the Arts and Culture Working Group of the Iowa STEM Council. We have a group that's where we work on creativity and innovation is going to be the topic of our discussion. And really that's what going to be is to bring teachers in who really want to see what Caroline was talking about. What does this look like in the classroom? How is this an effective means of reaching students? How are we able to break down the silos amongst all the curricular areas? And once you start doing that, it's a very powerful learning tool. We've done presentations like this to the Iowa legislature when we did in person. We've done the A+ Art School in Sioux City. We did the Turnaround Arts Program in Des Moines. We did the Johnson STEAM Academy in Cedar Rapids. And every time they're coming in and talking about, these teachers come in and the students come in and talk about it, and the legislators will come up and say, why doesn't every school teach this way? And we're going, well, first of all, it's a huge paradigm shift, of looking at education in a totally different way. And also it's a huge professional development and funding juggernaut, all right? But it's like Caroline said, there's ways that you can do that no matter what size of school you're at. I don't have to be in a large school. In some ways, it's almost easier in a rural and a smaller school. There are less barriers. So yeah, it's a very exciting way of educating, and we hopefully also with the Alliance after this seminar, our pre-conference next June is that we will be able to provide professional development through the AEAs on this topic. So we're working on that as well.
Leon, that's fantastic. And just to add a little bit more to that access point, arts integration in general requires very few supplies. You don't need an instrument. You just need to be able to clear your desk out of the way and have open space. And you can do Tableau, which is a drama strategy. You can help your students choreograph water cycle dances where they're showing evaporation, precipitation, and condensation through movement. So there's the training piece that has to go into it, but it doesn't require a lot of physical things. And so it really can go into any classroom if you can shift that paradigm of thinking. And the other thing is we're thinking about access. I think there's another session that's maybe been happening right now about the changing demographics of students in our schools. Arts integration is great for lingual learners. There is so much in the way that we do traditional education and core content where students are asked to learn through reading text that is written in English, or to show their understanding by being able to put that back on paper with pen and pencil in the English language. That is an area that, yes, they are working on those skills, but we have so many other content areas about science and social studies that our students that are multilingual learners should not be left behind in learning that content. And if you can learn that content through images or through music or through dance and seeing it put in a much more kinesthetic way, we are not leaving them behind in learning in those subject areas. And teachers have this huge additional wealth of knowledge to see what their students know and to understand how intelligent our multilingual learners are, because we're giving them more access points for how to show and demonstrate that understanding and to construct that learning that doesn't rely solely on being a proficient or fluent English speaker. We can do both at the same time when we bring the arts into our classrooms as another way to learn and show learning.
Yeah, following up on that, Caroline, I got a chance to visit the Arts Ignite program at the Waterloo schools in June. And that was a 2-week program where they did transdisciplinary learning. And I think there were 35 different languages represented by the students who attended this. And they did it through dance, art, theater, music. And they did all of the content areas, but using that as a vehicle. It was super, super exciting. So it was great.
Yeah, I mean, the arts are core to who we are as humans. Before we talked, we sang. Before we dance. Like it goes back all throughout history. And so across cultures, across languages, they're really powerful tools that oftentimes we put the arts in this like warm, fuzzy, nice to have category. I'm like, no, it's core to who we are. And we can leverage that as a tool for these additional challenges that we are going through as we respond to changing demographics and the increasing diversity of our state in a way that puts students at the center and looks at them from an assets point of view and not a deficits point of view.
Fantastic. We have another great question from our audience. What can arts educators do to encourage greater community involvement in supporting the funding of arts and education? Leon?
Okay, I think first of all, you have to be your own best advocate. I think that, and that starts in your classroom. I think it's really, really important that we as classroom teachers are able to say, so our students can verbalize, what are they doing? Why is it important? And how does it connect to the outside world? So I think that's the first thing too. I think the strongest incubator we have are our students. If they go home to their parents and they say, this is what we did here today, and they're excited about it, I think that's the very, very first thing. The second thing too, I think, is teachers just need to reach out. I think we need to be able to reach out to our community organizations. Every community has a local art museum, or a historical museum, things like that. I think one of the things we can do is we have to kind of toot our own horn. We have to be able to say, these are the exciting things that are going on in my classroom. Will you come join me? Or reaching out to someone else and saying, oh, could we collaborate to make this happen? Because I think that community and school partnership, they don't happen in isolation. Everything happens in collaboration and communication. So that would be you just got to put yourself out there and just keep communicating, collaborating.
Grace, can you repeat that question? My brain just went a whole lot of different directions, because when it comes to advocacy, there are a number of things that I think of. But I want to specifically to what they were asking.
Absolutely. What can arts educators do to encourage greater community involvement to support funding of arts education?
Okay, so one thing that I would say is, as Leon said, be your own best advocate. So last night I had a concert, and I guess I'm the son of a preacher and I get a little preachy sometimes. But one thing that I do is I always send my audiences home with a homework assignment. That's to let people know these things do not happen in isolation. They don't happen because somebody at the State House is saying, we should have an orchestra in Iowa City, right? For me, speaking as a high school orchestra director, I let parents know this is here because you support it and because you want this here and because this administrator is in support of this and make sure that I have the time to do what I need to do and that these kids have this, that, and the other. And I encourage them, let them know, let your administrators know, let not just your school building, let the school board know, let the superintendent know. And, scream it from the mountaintops. We want this, we need this, this is important. I want my child to have access with this. There are other things that you can do too. Parent organizations can be very helpful. Here in the Iowa City schools, we had a very long-standing parent organization, the Iowa City Music Auxiliary. Some people have different booster groups, band, choir, orchestra booster groups. Sometimes they don't necessarily need to be here just to raise money, which a lot of times that's what these organizations do, but they can also be an important arm of advocacy. And something that I know one of my roles as the performance music coordinator when I served in that role for the Iowa City schools, and that whomever is in that is that they are our point to the Iowa City Music Auxiliary, which represents band, orchestra, and choir, grades 5 through 12. And it's a parent organization where every single band, orchestra, and choir in the district has a parent representative that shows up. It's somewhat of a democratic group in that, they come together to discuss how they're going to raise funds for us. How there are times where I come in and say, hey, we need to communicate these things. And it allows parents to say, this is what's happening in these programs, and here are some concerns that we have. So there are a number of ways that you can do that just locally. And, when you have those larger groups, sometimes the people that they're reaching out to raise funds for them are the local businesses. We're lucky to have West Music, their central office located right here. And their children went through actually the west side of the Iowa City schools. And we have a number of, organizations that we reach out to and work with in order to provide that advocacy. But, those are two, one, at your concerts or just, locally, just reach out and let parents know you have to be active with this and you have to continue to encourage them to do that. And advocacy doesn't have to be a storming the castle thing. Sometimes it's just being proactive by saying, hey, superintendent so-and-so, come see our concert. These kids are doing great. Hey, they're doing this, that, and the other. Celebrate the successes that they have. Whether it's we had these kids make all state, or whether it's, this junior high group is playing at the hockey game, or, playing at, whatever at the mall, whatever it is, you got to sell yourself. And then also just work with parents. Parents and local businesses can be your best advocates, and you have to build those relationships. It's an incredibly important thing to do.
Can I go back to this idea that Leon brought up earlier about communication? If you're interested in advocating for something, just communicate with people and find out what currently exists. Who is providing funding within your current school district, what kind of funding exists, and what kinds of needs are there. Keep those doors of communication open, because once that happens, then you know where there might be a need. For instance, if there's a need for busing, we have different grants for transportation. And one year I sat on an NEA, the National Endowment for the Arts grant organization, and I looked at applications for education-based grants for direct learning opportunities. And I was surprised that across the entire United States, there were only a handful of people that had applied for funding in the arts. So there are lots of opportunities across the United States available to fund these programs that sometimes people are unaware of. So if you are aware of something, bring it to someone's attention, bring it to a curriculum coordinator's attention, because sometimes we just don't always know. And it comes back to this idea of communication.
If you're an arts educator, or really anybody, and you've got 5 extra minutes, we have we were going to be doing our advocacy day at the state capitol is going to be on Wednesday, January 18th, 2023. But there's a 48-hour window in which we provide all the stuff you need to do to be a virtual advocate. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be we match every person who registers with their local legislator. And what we provide is we provide a template that you can customize that says, hello, my name is Leon, I'm from Hampton, Iowa, blah, 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 and this is my connection with the arts. And then it's just basically a copy and paste with embedded links. And so in this link, there'll be something where we'll have a short advocacy video with students talking about the importance of arts education, teachers talking about the importance of arts education, and we'll have supporting documentation. Have this set up so that we track every person who registers virtually. We match them with the legislator. We will send you their email address. So you really have to do nothing. It takes 5 minutes. You cut, paste, customize, send. And so that you will be able to register if you would like to become a virtual advocate starting on December 1st on the Iowa Alliance website. It's very easy to do. And our goal this year, because we're going to have a lot of new legislators because of the election, is that we have a person from every county. So we have a constituent contacting a legislator. So if you want to do it and you got 5 extra minutes, sign up and we'll get the information to you.
Thank you for that call to action. I love ending on that note. We have about 2 minutes left. Are there any last thoughts that anyone would like to share with us? I don't know, Caroline, Sarah?
I just want to thank you for hosting this event today. It's been wonderful to talk about arts education, especially in our state of Iowa. And I encourage everyone to become an advocate if you're interested in this, because it really does add to the value of our communities across our entire state.
I would just add to that, and I would just encourage folks, sorry, I know my name wasn't called, but I was just going to say, thanks for having me. Anytime I can be on a panel with any of these folks, but Sarah and Leon, I'm happy to do so. I always learn so much, especially being around Leon. But for everybody that's here, business leaders, whatever your role is in your community, we need your advocacy. We just constantly need it. Public schools constantly in need of funding. So any way you can, and sometimes it's, making sure that these programs exist in your community and reaching out and talking, school board, the process of getting folks elected, the process of everything. It's one of the most democratic things that we have. And it's one of the, so we really just need to pay attention to, be part of, and a lot can get done locally just from your involvement. So stay vigilant with this, and we need your support.
Beautifully said, John. I think all I had to add was just remembering that we all have a role to play. It's not just our arts teachers, it is the entire system. It's parents, it's business leaders. This is about both the day-to-day experience we want our young people to have and how we're showing them that we value them. And it's about the long game. What is the citizenry that we want to help develop and the next level of our workforce, but more just how do we want our young people to move into adulthood to be our next level of leaders? And the arts play such a vibrant role in giving them the space to figure out who are they, how can they exercise their voice, and how can they exist in community with others. And so whatever your call to action is today, know that your voice is valued, and we will do great things when we do it together and we keep this at the forefront.
Thank you, all of you, for joining us today, and to our guests here to hear about how we can preserve the arts in public education. Be sure to check out our next arts and culture session, Unlocking Successful Public Arts Programs, which begins at 11:15. Thank you for joining our Iowa Ideas Conference, and enjoy your day. Thank you.